Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about wars. So obviously, with Israel really bombing Palestine, the whole situation, we have been less focused on, I guess, the Ukrainian side of the war, but obviously because my family had to flee. Um, a lot of people I knew were sort of had their lives changed and etc. Colleagues of my parents and so on and so on. And so obviously that war is more personal to me. And I have been sort of not doing specifically a video on Israel Palestine because again I really think that other people have way more insight than I do. And but I did want to touch a certain topic again because I kind of know a lot about the Ukrainian Russian stuff. I figured that there are some certain things which I wanted to throw in comparison, which people didn't think about, and etc. So when it comes to um, what do these two things have in common? The fact that people in their Twitter bios can say which sides they support. And that is where it gets a bit confusing for me. So one of the most common ones and what prompted this video was a girl posting on Twitter that for Ukraine, she had to move out because she's considered too Jewish slur, to Israel to pretty much hear that she's not Jewish enough, because obviously with Israel there has been a lot of things like you have to be specifically an Israeli Jew to be buried in a Jewish cemetery, and you have to go through this process. And even if you're during the process and you still didn't pass, like they buried a woman outside the cemetery. So it's also very gatekeepy. But in general, when it comes to religion, I feel like when it comes to religion, we all just see the world, and obviously there's the religious people who keep up this uh, really hateful rhetoric, and obviously they're very hateful ones. But there's still a lot of people who sort of don't care or think that, okay, well, I was raised in a Protestant household and I don't see any problem with it. Or like I was raised, I don't know, a Mormon and I don't see anything wrong with it. But when other religions get involved and even hate the same way, they think that their religion is fine to hate, but the other one isn't, and it gets weird. Like there's been the argument, sort of like, for instance, in Queers for Palestine, sort of, why are you marching for Palestine if the Quran says you're wrong and obviously will be punished, while they ignore the fact that Christianity has been going after homosexuality and trans people for God knows how long. And some people rightfully say, well, it's not like it's better in some certain US states, so why can't I march? And in general, this is something I discussed with my partner. Um, there is this sort of idea and sort of unwritten rule, even something that's acceptable and not seen weird. But I do find it a bit confusing when people march for certain things under like, and it can be anything, sort of something like well, like Queers for Palestine, or it can be something like I don't know, like this country marches for the other one, and it makes sense. But sometimes I get confused specifically like in the Queers for Palestine, because obviously we should all try to do our best, and if we understand how to call for a ceasefire, for any action sort of to make sure that this stops happening. But at the same time, I feel like going as Queers for Palestine, um, actually don't know. Like, I do understand um, the sentiments of saying this group is against what's happening right now in Palestine and calls for a ceasefire, calls for Israel to fucking stop, really. But at the same time, if Palestine doesn't treat LGBT people, well, how to put this, decently, why should you put a banner of squares for Palestine? Why can't you just be like people for Palestine? But at the same time, I do understand that as history develops and etc., obviously LGBT people stand for to protect people against racism, um, xenophobia, to say that not everyone's able-bodied, and etc. So I do understand, but it does kind of give me a bit of conflict in my head, and also I guess I'm sort of applying this because I remember that I really did not enjoy seeing LGBT people for Ukraine, because Ukraine is very transphobic, very homophobic, very racist, very xenophobic. And there are cases like, for instance, there was a gay soldier who started fighting for Ukraine, and they would just call him by a gay slur and be to his face and behind his back, so they had no respect for him, and that kind of gets me the vibe. So I think because the Ukrainian war, well, it's happening, it happened, started recently. That's why I feel like I'm just stamping sort of my thoughts on the Ukraine war on everything else. So yeah, and when it comes again to Twitter bios, you have this mixed match of which people you support. And when it comes to Ukraine's case, Ukraine has, well, like the Twitter mention said, has a lot of anti-Jewish people. There were a lot of Jews which lost their lives during World War II. There's a lot of anti-Jew ideology. There's obviously Nazis in the Ukrainian army. And yeah, in general, people are really just not kind to Jewish people, to put it very mildly. Yet, people sort of say, oh, but for instance, it doesn't matter, like Zelensky is Jewish, but it's like you just haven't seen a Russian article where they show you, or an actual article by something which is other than CNN or Fox News, that shows how Zelensky gets treated factually by other higher ranking people. And on the opposite, that's why, for instance, he'd go before the war started to like Atto and other things, and they wouldn't take him seriously because he was Jewish. So yeah, and not to defend Zelensky for fuck's sake, but I just really want to show how deep that anti-Semitism is there. So these things sort of go in my head, and I understand that I'm just seeing a pattern and then I'm clicking it to the next thing. But that's how the human brain really works. We find patterns because we're always striving to find a pattern, because it feels to us like everything has a solution. So yeah. So this is what I wanted to say, sort of highlight that it's very weird that people allow some sort of hate speech, hatred from one group but not from the other, but at the same time it's sort of a, you will protect your favorite celebrity or something. And the same applies to obviously global issues, global terrifying issues actually. So yeah, um, that was pretty much the video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been so happy about the last video. It's very nice to see um, so many people watching, joining in. I really appreciate it. It was really nice. I appreciated the love, the feedback, everything. Thank you very much. So yeah, let's see if this one gains traction. So if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to share. Feel free to subscribe, watch some more videos, give a like, leave a comment, buy me a coffee, and yeah, let's try to get me monetized at some point. Thank you.